Shalom. My intention is to bring to you a second message as a second part of the Parashat of Shemot, last Shabbat's Parasha. Of course, there are messages from time to time that penetrate the heart, the spirit, and I like to share them with you. As you understand, we are now in such a time in which the Jewish people in the land of Israel is finding itself again, of course, in a war, as everybody knows, with the Hamas, a terrible and vicious enemy, the kind of enemy that brings to mind that there is a possibility to find among those which we can call human beings, but they are very far from being human. After what they have committed, the horrific and atrocious act of cruelty that they committed against our people on October 7th, is something that we should discuss. As Jews, we should try also to learn as many messages as possible, if there are many or even one. Why did it have to happen? And why in such a way? I wanted very much, even though perhaps I spoke about this times before, but I would like to emphasize again this point, because I tell you the truth, the situation is quite alarming. Of course, after the terrible day of Simchat Torah on October 7th, we are still in that war for the last 3 months. But during this war, we found out that the Jewish people can be united through the beloved army of Israel, Tzahal. We realized that Jews are made to be with one another. It's impossible for the Jews to be divided. Division and the lack of unity is catastrophic for us. And that's, for the first time, we realized that we are united. But unfortunately, in the last week or so, we realize that there is the terrible thing that we have seen and we have witnessed the last few months before the war began, the terrible lack of unity, so many manifestations of division among the Jewish people, and the Jewish people cannot live when we are divided. It is known in the holy writings that unity among the Jewish people is one fundamental and extraordinary kind of character that is in fact what we call the Jewish people. Our sages said, Israel arevim ze beze. We are not only united by nature. I have explained last week, in the derasha of last week, that we, the Jews, are different than all the other nations in one thing. And the Torah specifically demonstrates that by saying that the children of Israel are known as nefesh achat, one single soul, whereas the souls of all the other nations are considered in Hebrew nefashot, in the plural, souls. And Rashi says it's because the nations, each one believes whatever he wants. Let's put it this way. But the Jewish people have only one kind of belief, and that is the Almighty Hashem, who is one and only. And the reason why the sages said, Israel arevim ze beze, the Jewish people are integrated into one another. It's because it becomes extremely dangerous when we are not united. That's the reason why we call upon those who, just because for a while they lost the feeling of being supreme in the land of Israel, and now, because we are a democracy, and we go according to the people, and they could not take it that they lost the supremacy in the land of Israel. They cannot tolerate that. Therefore, for months and months, at least 8 months, they kept on manifesting again, demonstrations after demonstrations every week, to the point that we have seen such hatred that cannot be described with words. The hatred against the Jews of Torah, those who learn Torah. I have said it many times, when one keeps on hating something without a reason really, even though he does fabricate his own reasons, it means that he does inside his soul, that's what he wants to be, but he cannot. But one thing there is to understand, that there is no reason to hate the people who learn Torah. It is true that it looks like they don't share in the burden of the Jewish people. Today the burden is to be in the army of Israel, to fight for the land of Israel. And the people who learn Torah, apparently they stay in the yeshivot and in the kollel learning day and night, and that's it. Does not seem to be fair. But if you know the meaning of Judaism, then you know that at least one should say to himself, okay, I don't like it. But they believe in that. They believe that the reason why we win our wars in modern times, it's because of the power of the Torah. The Talmud says that. Torah magna umatzla. The learning of Torah causes protection and salvation. Okay, you don't believe in that. But there is a great number of Jews who believe in that. So there is a way how to participate in the effort with the army of Israel, whom we love so much, and we pray for them so much. But to hate the people of Torah is very dangerous. Imagine if we stay without Torah, who knows? Remember, the fact that we are still in existence as Jews is a miracle, against all odds, against every kind of logic. The non-Jews testify to that it is a miracle. So imagine if we did not have this side of our faith, that Torah saves us. If we believe in that, then we owe them, those who learn Torah. Because not everybody is capable of learning Torah day and night, let alone to be able to survive without having any money. That's those people who cannot, at least they should admire that. But let's say you don't believe, okay. But remember that there is always the other side of the story. There are those who believe. I heard this from Moshe Dayan himself. You remember Moshe Dayan? After the 6 days war, I remember we gathered in Binyane HaUmah with at least 3,000 students from the Jewish University of Jerusalem. And Moshe Dayan, General Moshe Dayan, the great leader of Israel at that time, in 1967, he spoke to, and he is not a religious man. He was never religious. So there was one of the crowd who asked him the question, why is it that the people who learn Torah, they don't go to the army? And the answer of Moshe Dayan caused everyone to applaud his answer. What was the answer? They say that we win because of their learning of Torah. Whether I believe or not, it's my problem. This is my decision. But let's assume that they are correct, that they are right. Nobody can be sure of anything. So if they are right, that we win because of them, then we should at least owe them a thank. And let's say we don't believe in that and we are more correct, okay? But what have we gained? Nothing. I will never forget the answer by Moshe Dayan, but I will never forget the reaction of those students. 90% of those students were not religious, and yet they applauded Moshe Dayan. You see, that's what we call the Jewish spark. Once you ignite the Jewish spark, then it becomes evident to everyone. That's what I am asking now. Jews must be united. Why? Because we cannot unite with the world. It's impossible. I am going to explain that. The point is this. It is a law of nature, as the Talmud says, Halacha hi Esav soneh leYaakov. We will never be able to get rid of this situation. The world hates us. But we have to understand why they hate us. Of course, they tell themselves all kinds of reasonings. But the real reason is because if they did not hate us, if we were like any normal people, we would have assimilated long time ago. God knows what He's doing. He wants His people, whom He chose at the mountain of Sinai after the Jewish people proclaimed, Na'aseh v'nishma. We accept your Torah. We accept the commandments of the Torah. 613 commandments. Automatically we became chosen. Automatically we became hated by the nations. Why? Because we are different. Physically we are not different. We have the same feelings, we have the same character, we have the same everything. But there is one thing in which the nations know more than the Jews themselves, or some of the Jews. The fact that we became chosen by God makes us different than all the nations, and the nations will always find reasons to hate us. We are being judged day after day. Even the Holocaust was not enough for the nations. How much more should we suffer? To prove to you the point that we are different than the world. Of course it's not logical, and it's not reasonable, and it's not justice. It's not just at all that they hate us. On the contrary, I will never forget the king of Morocco, Hassan II, God bless his soul. In New York, we went to welcome him. After I spoke, and after I read the psalm in honor of the king while he was sitting with his family, everybody came to kiss his hands. We had a great assembly of very respectable Jews who were listening to him. He spoke to us like a Torah scholar. And then we went in order to, most of them went to kiss his hands. But then, when my turn came, he said to me, "Where are you from?" I said to him, "From Meknes." I know I did tell the story before. But I like to do it again, to say it again. Why? Because he told me something that we Jews should not forget. He said to me, please, Rabbi, tell the Jews to come back. He thought that maybe all the Jews are in my hands. Tell them to come back, because the day they departed from Morocco, we lost the blessing of the Jews. The barakah, he calls it barakah. The barakah disappeared. Tell them to come back. You know, there is something that's unbelievable. In the Torah, in Parashat Shemot, we find that Vayamot Melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt, passed away. The one who loved Joseph, and of course, why not? Joseph gave the land of Egypt all the possibilities of survival. I mean, they should owe him everything. But our sages said, Vayakom Melech Hadash al Mitzrayim. A new king became the new Pharaoh in Egypt. And our sages said, brought in Rashi, one says, a new king, really. And there is another opinion that says, he was not new, only his decisions became different. He used to love the Jewish people, but now the Jewish people, I mean, our father Jacob passed away, and the Jews now assimilated somehow among the Egyptians, and they multiplied enormously. So the king, apparently, his advisors told him what's going to be. It's very dangerous. They are liable, if they continue this way, multiplying in such a way, in such numbers, they'll be able to conquer us, and they will be the leaders of Egypt. We cannot tolerate that. And that's we find that Pharaoh changed his mind over the Jews, and it says in the Torah, here is what it says. He proclaimed the terrible decision, an edict that we cannot forget. He decided that every born child should be thrown into the river. This way, he said, he is going to minimize the number of the Jewish people, and this way they will be completely... But at the same time, it was not enough, because he decided then that all the Jews should become enslaved, and slavery began. A terrible slavery, many, many years. But I want you to think about one word, that it says, Vayakom melech hadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yada et Yosef. The new king, new, or maybe his decisions became new. He ignored the history of Egypt with Joseph. And Joseph was the one instrumental in the survival of Egypt at that time from the famine. Story is known. Vayomer el Amo. He turns to his people and he said, Pharaoh, Hine am bnei Israel rav ve'atzum mimenu, hava nitchakem lo. Let's find a good and intelligent way how to dispose with the Jewish people with us. Because they are multiplying and they become numerous. If we will have any kind of war, then they might join the other side and they will fight us. This is the point I want you to pay attention to. He might fight us, and then he might go away from us. Hey, hold it 1 minute. Apparently, you don't want the Jewish people to be with you, right? And suddenly you are complaining that maybe they will fight you if they become too many, and then they will leave the land. If they leave the land, that's good. Isn't that what you want? You know what is the answer? No. No, he wants the Jews to stay in his land. At the same time, he wants to be the one, to have the supremacy over everyone. Okay. What do we learn from this? The Jews are hated, but they want them to be with them. Of course, I'm not talking about the situation in Israel, where they don't want us to be here. But that's also something to discuss for another time. So let's go back to what we said before. We have no choice, my friends. We have to be united. That's condition number one. Obligation number one of the Jew. We have to be with each other, otherwise we are endangering our life. Right now, thank God, everything is okay. God is with us. Despite the fact that a big chunk of the population does not observe the commandments, no Torah, no nothing, unfortunately. But the obligation of the Jew is to think only about the fact, why is he a Jew? And what is the meaning of being Jewish? He should check himself. He will find out that he is circumcised. It means his parents circumcised him. He should ask himself. Maybe he should ask. The Torah tells us at the end of the Torah, "She'al avicha v'yagedcha zekenecha v'yomru lach." Ask your fathers, your parents, and they will tell you. And if not your parents, then go to your grandparents. They will tell you. Many of those Jews who are not religious anymore, their parents were religious. And if it's not their parents, their grandparents are religious. Ask them, what is the meaning of being Jewish? Why was I circumcised? The circumcision of the Jew comes to give him the idea that you are not like everyone else in the world. Physically, you are the same. But at the same time, by being circumcised, you are a Jew. And what is the meaning of being a Jew? You belong to the nation who has been chosen by God. So what? What does it mean? How does it feel to be chosen? Oh, you know what it means? It means you will be hated. It means you are going to be suffering. Suffering? I am chosen by God and I will be suffering? Isn't this a contradiction? Does not make sense. Well, the idea is this. Let me tell you exactly the point from the beginning. God, when He created the world, He created the world, He has to populate it, right? So He created Adam. For which purpose? The Torah says, He tells them when He created Adam and Eve, He gave them one obligation. Pru urvu mil'u et haaretz. You have to multiply and fill up the earth. Very nice. The world filled up. But God was not happy. Was not happy because the world did not behave properly. And therefore there was the flood and the world was destroyed. With a small hope. Noah, who was a good man, a righteous man. But then things continue to be bad with all kinds, 10 generations from Noah up to Abraham. And then Abraham came. And Abraham, our father Abraham, with his wonderful traits of character, God is looking and pondering upon the guy. And He says, this man is different. By nature, it's not that God created him to be this way. No. God creates him with everything that you want. Good and bad character. But He looks at the man trying to be the best he can. In which way? To be a man of great kindness, great humility, and a man of wisdom. That's what God is looking for. So he said, this man, Abraham, is going to be my friend. And then Abraham gave birth to a child, finally. And he gave us Yitzchak. But in the meantime, he gave also Ishmael. Ishmael fills up the earth. You should ask this the question: if Ishmael is not beloved by God, why did God make sure that Abraham should bring a child like this, from whom the Jewish people suffered so much? Well, because Ishmael has a function in this world, to fill up the world, exactly as the son who came together with Jacob, Esav, the son of Yitzchak. Yitzchak was the ideal of all greatness, as we know in our writings, that Yitzchak, the son of Abraham, was not only the son of Abraham, but he was even better than Abraham. And then he gave us Jacob, the chosen of all our forefathers, as our sages tell us about Jacob. While Yitzchak gave us Jacob, he gave us also Esav, from whom the Jewish people suffered very much. Is this what you wanted, God? Yes, there is no choice. Because if you don't suffer, you are not going to be that way that God wants you to be. Humility, great traits of character, of kindness, and everything that makes you perfect. When it comes to, when of course we have the Torah. But at the same time, let's look upon Jacob. Yaakov, our forefather, he was the first one who gave us 12 children who, according to our writing, were all righteous. What happened with Joseph is a different story. There are many questions. We cannot explain everything. And there are also the hidden part of the Torah, like the story that they sold their brother Joseph. It's something that no matter how much we try to explain, it will never be as logical for us as possible. But that is because we are limited. There are many things that are hidden from us, like it says in the Torah, "Hanistarot ladonai Elohenu, ve'haniglot lanu ulbanenu ad olam." There are things that should remain hidden. But there are things that are open for us and revealed to us that we should always contemplate and try to understand them. At the same time, we allow ourselves to have questions and to provide answers to the best of our ability. So Yaakov gave us 12 tribes, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, etc. And we all know the story of Joseph. They finally ended up to go to the land of Egypt when Joseph was reigning as the monarch number one after Pharaoh. Pharaoh gave him all the power. And Joseph, because of his wisdom, was capable of sustaining all the nation of Egypt from the famine that came upon the world. And then what happened? Jacob died. When the father dies, the children become as a kind of free. So they start to assimilate. But God, long time before Jacob, God said to Abraham, Yadoa Teda, you should know that one day your children, which your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, will be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. And the question is, why is it that, God, what did we do that we should be enslaved and tortured by the Egyptians, as the story goes in the Midrash? ויעבידו אותם בפרך, ויענו אותם 400 שנה. They have exaggerated their kind of enslaving the Jew and torturing them and making them suffer so much. Question is why? Because God knows what He's doing. And He's looking for a nation. He created the world to populate the world. But now He wants one nation that belongs to Him. But that nation has to have traits of character that God respects more than anything else. Number one is humility. Number two is kindness with people, helping each other, charity. And number three, to be compassionate. Rahmanim, as the Talmud says, Shalosh matanot nitnu leIsrael. There are three gifts that were given to the people of Israel. Baishanim, which means they are easy to be embarrassed. Why? The nature of the old Jew, let's call it this way, is to be humble. Of course, you should ask the question, what do you mean humble? I am chosen by God and I should be humble? Yes, that's the problem. To be chosen by God is not easy. Nobody says that it is easy. And why do you think the world did not accept the Torah except the Jewish people? Because it's not easy. The Talmud tells us in Masechet Avodah Zarah on the second page that God offered the nations to accept the Torah, and they could not. They considered it, they respected it, but they could not take it, so they refused. So God says, okay, you're free. But my people Israel, when I asked them, would you like to receive my Torah? They said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Enthusiastically they said, yes, we shall accept and we shall do and observe. Not easy. To be a Jew is not easy. But it is glorious. Believe me. But the learning, you see, why do we have to learn Torah? It's because it is the Torah that will help us to understand how to acquire real humility, not the humility that comes by nature. There are people who are humble by nature. But when you learn Torah profoundly, then you will discover the traits of humility that are to be respected. And then you have, of course, the obligation to help one another. Gimilut chasadim, loving kindness, and then compassion. It is known that the Jewish people is very compassionate. Unfortunately, the world will always condemn us. But that's also part of the story. If the Jew understands why do they hate us, we should be even proud. They hate us. God knows why. Why? Because that's the only way to preserve my people. Otherwise, my people will disappear and assimilate if they were loved by everyone. Then automatically we would assimilate. This way, they stay with me. Yes, they have to suffer. The slavery in Egypt was for that purpose, to build up a nation that is the way I have described. That's the reason when finally he has his nation ready, he said, now is the time to give them redemption, but I need a leader. But the leader must also have the traits of character that I am asking. This way he will be mine. Moses. We all know the story of Moses. Beginning with the day when he was thrown as a baby into the waters. And the daughters of Pharaoh is the one who rescued him. And then, after being for a while with his real mother, unknowingly of course, he grew up in the house of Pharaoh as a prince. I read in the Midrash that one day he was to become the Pharaoh of Egypt. Instead, he started to ask questions. Why is these people are enslaved? He looked upon the Jewish people. Why are they enslaved? What have they committed? A man of wisdom, but a man of compassion. His compassion led him to take part of their affliction, as the Midrash tells us. At the same time, he was helping one another. You see the slavery, what it does? I'm not calling for slavery. I'm not asking for slavery. But it is enough that we should know what it does to a person with the proper wisdom, as the Jew has. Slavery will cause them to help one another, to develop their sense of compassion. And there is no question about it that without humility, there is no compassion. When a person is proud and arrogant, he is not compassionate. Compassion is found only in the heart of the humble one. And the Torah declares openly, "Va'ish Moshe anav me'od mikol ha'adam asher al penei ha'adama." And the man Moses is the most humble man on earth, which means God was looking into the heart of every human being in the world. He could have chosen Aaron, the brother of Moshe, who was a real righteous man. What about the father of Moshe, Amram, the great spiritual leader of the Jewish people at that time? Although God agrees that they are righteous, not enough. Suddenly he distinguishes in the heart of a young man something special that he could not find in any other heart. The humility that he is looking for, the compassion that he is looking for, the kind of person who wants to help. All this he found in a prince called Moshe. He says, that's the guy I need. And he appears to him the first time in the burning bush. The bush is very short, very small. And it was burning, and Moshe looks at that. He says, oh my God, this is unbelievable. It's burning, but it doesn't seem to be consumed. That needs reflection. And God spoke to him. He said, Moshe, he said, here I am. What did God want? Why did he appear to him why did the divine presence appear to him in the form of a burning bush? Because the burning bush is going to tell him the future of the Jewish people. That people whom he saw enslaved and afflicted. He said, it is true that they are going to be suffering because they are going to be mine. So therefore they have to be suffering. Because suffering makes you pure, makes you compassionate, makes you better than others. Can you find arrogance among people who suffer? Impossible. So he wanted Moshe to know that. You see that the burning bush, you see the bush is burning, but it will not be consumed. That's exactly the example with the Jewish people. The Jewish people will suffer throughout the generations. But will they stop to exist? Never. Am Israel Chai. At the same time, there are many other explanations. But the idea that I would like to project is that those Jews who do not keep the mitzvot, who do not keep the commandment, we have so many of them today. Unfortunately, they might even be the majority. But it's going to change. I'm sure it's going to change. We have no choice. In the meantime, we should be very careful not to exaggerate. Because you know what happened, as I have explained already once before? When we exaggerate and we don't care about the honor of God Himself and the people who learn Torah, if we exaggerate too much and we destroy unity among us, at the same time we don't give, I would say, the ahut, like President Bush used to say, for Shabbat. Shabbat is the day of God. Shabbat hu Hashem. And we don't give it any respect, anything. Especially when it is doubled with Simchat Torah, the day of the holiday of Shmini Atzeret, in which we dance around the Torah. And rather than respecting that, we exaggerate by doing things that should not be done by Jews. Many Jews are trying to emulate the world. It doesn't work with us. We have to try it, at least to listen and to start believing. So many young Jews were killed on the day of this October 7th. And the terror was terrible. They were running away. And the terrorists are killing and killing and killing. And they showed me that some of the young people, they are not religious at all. Suddenly, knowing that death is coming, they said, Shema Israel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. How did he know if he doesn't know the meaning of a holiday, of Shabbat, of being decent and not following the ways that we see around the world? Because we are Jews. To be a Jew is not easy. But we are proud to be Jews. You see, my friends, it's time to start understanding. It's time to start meditating over what we are. Check yourself and see who you are. If you are a Jew, this demands from you reflection and a lot of thinking. It's not easy to be a Jew. We are not too many. But at the same time, look upon the world, always judging us, always condemning us, always trying to do with us whatever they want. That shows that we are special. We should be proud of that. At the same time, I tell you, who am I to tell you anything? But I feel it with all my heart that things are going to change and the world is going to change. And the world will stop hating us because it's not fair. Like the King Hassan II, God bless his soul, he said, Jews, come back to us, we need your blessing. The world knows the blessing of the Jewish people. Today, modern Israel is one of the greatest powers in the world, in everything. It's a blessing to the world. Why hating us? But this jealousy and this hatred will not stop until we discover who we are. And so I am calling for you, my friends, and telling you with all my heart, at least, if not to change totally, but to start thinking the meaning of being Jewish. And the Judaism without Torah is not Judaism. So therefore, we have to owe the world of Torah a lot also. It's one part of the army of Israel, but at the same time, we bless the army, and the soldiers of Israel should be blessed. And may God protect them, and may God give them health and happiness. And they should see the truth also when they come back home safe and everything. They should realize who they are, and they should say with all their heart, Shema Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Bye, my friend. Be well.